Welcome back to another edition of Straight Outta Flushing. Dexter Henry, my guy, the great Tyler Ward, a.k.a. Wardy. With us, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Dex, I'm feeling great. We got another Mets pod again, and it's Straight Outta Flushing right here, right now.
Yeah,
How can
man.
you not be feeling good?
No, it's been good. Look, let everybody know. Look, the first week has been fantastic. The fan response has been great. We're excited. We're getting closer to spring training. I'm going to say that every week. As we're getting closer to being done with spring training, I should say, closer to opening day, which we'll have more for you guys on that. We're excited about opening day. I'm doing well. How was your week?
It was good, especially in the build-up with everything as we do inch closer to opening day, and there's been a lot of things going on in Mets land right now that we've seen in spring training over the past 48 to 72 hours I've been covering on my platforms. I'm excited to get into it here in our conversation today because this is going to be a fun one.
Yeah, we're going to have a fun conversation today. So we had a little, just to take people behind the curtain a little bit, right? So Wardy and I, we were talking about Mets players we really feel are important or impactful to the team this season. So we said, why don't we give our top 5 most important Mets players this season? Now, Wardy, here's the thing. Importance has different definitions for everybody, right? Like how you value a player is most important or maybe not as important. But I want you, and I want you to share yours and me to share mine as well so that the fans can understand how we define importance. So how do you define importance when it comes to looking at a player for this 2026 season?
There are various ways that you can look at a player, obviously, and emphasize the importance of them, but especially in how we both respectively went about this, I want to emphasize really the guys that are most important in the sense that you need them. Like, they are literally the guys that you need where if injury happens, if something goes awry, your season might be cooked, buddy, because you don't have so-and-so. So that is really where my reasoning comes in when I'm breaking down the meaning of importance as I break down my top 5. Now, in comparing and contrasting that with yours, Dexter, how would you best explain?
So for me, I think more about is if things go right for these particular players, this really improves the Mets' ceiling, right? Or can also impact their floor. So for some of these players, and I think people will see with my list and how I came up with things and contrast in comparison to Wardy's, is that so for me, a lot of it is availability. That is huge for me. Like the best ability is availability, right? And so that is part of a factor in my list. It wasn't just talent. And I think what people will see as we have this discussion is all the players we're going to mention are going to be important. It's just about what level and how important and how it is to you personally. So we're not going to waste any time for you. We're going to get into it. So we're going to give our 5. Wardy will give one of his. I'll give one of mine. Then we'll just keep going as we go up from 5 to 1. So Wardy, you're going to kick things off. You're going to lead off, I should say, since it's a baseball podcast. You're going to lead off with your pick at number 5. Who do you have at number 5 as your 5th most important Met going into 2026?
Okay, so who I have at number 5 is a player that a lot of Mets fans have a lot of questions for as we enter the season, not just because this player has been inconsistent in the past in their career, but because he's getting set to play a position that he's never done at the major league level. Let's talk about Jorge Polanco, okay? Because Polanco is one of these players where, you can absolutely add him in your mix of guys where if things kind of go as planned, if things work out the way that you hope, if the ceiling hits, you have a really, really big piece here for first base as well as another offensive weapon. Again, Jorge Polanco batted .800 from both sides of the plate this past year in Seattle, and as we all know, it is not an easy place to hit there in Seattle half a season. So to see Polanco healthy after a down 2024 season that he dealt with ailment that everyone knows publicly about, it was great to see him bounce back and be as clutch as possible down the stretch for that Mariners team, Dexter. I mean, not only did we see him walk it off for them to get into postseason play, but he hit multiple home runs against Turk, Skubal, the best pitcher in baseball, you could rightfully argue. So Polanco not only brings the kind of clutch factor that you're longing for in aspects of this Mets lineup that they missed last year, but you're also bringing in a very diverse player, someone who's played all over the diamond, right? He's played pretty much every infield position but first base now. So David Stern's going with him at first. You could look at it one of two ways. You could say, okay, we're bringing in a defensive uncertainty to replace what was also a defensive uncertainty, but in Pete Alonso,
right.
But, might be even worse. How does that make logical sense? And I hear you, but given how the lineup has been constructed and what they really want to amplify this year with having, again, a rotation, a mix of players, Polanco's ability to play both at DH and first base is really what Carlos Mendoza is going to lean in on. And when I look at a value of someone like him, I look at Polanco as if the Mets don't have Jorge Polanco, they don't have a true lock of a guy that can go in every day at DH and produce at his level, and the same kind of guy that can give you the type of confidence that you're looking for at first base from a veteran standpoint. Beatty has the upside, as we know, when you look at versatility, but there's still plenty of inexperience with him, not just for first base, but being in the league in general, how to handle that. Mark Vientos, the same applies, but to an even higher degree when we look at the lack of maybe defensive ability. So Polanco, for all the question marks that he has, I look at him and I say, this is a player that if he not only performs the expectation, but really just, again, gives you what you are signing up for in Jorge Polanco, this is a game changer for the sense of the Mets getting another clutch bat in the heart of their lineup, a guy that should be perfectly content and fine at first base when he is there. And without that, they don't have that right now, you know? For all the lack of certainty that they have, it would make things even 10 times worse if Jorge Polanco was not part of this current equation.
So I'm going to slightly push back on you here. Not
Go
really
ahead.
push back.
Yeah, no, please.
You put him at number 5. And I think there are going to be some Mets fans that say, Woody, how could you do that? You mentioned the word. You said it multiple times, uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty with him. Did you think about putting him higher up because of that uncertainty? You know, because I think people might look at him like, well, who does Wardy have more important than him? Especially when you add in your boy, Pete Alonso, and how everybody feels or doesn't feel about him not being on the Mets roster. Did you think about putting him higher? I guess I shouldn't say push back. I have more questions for you. Did you think about putting him up higher on your list?
You know, not even for a second, Dex. And
really?
Okay. And the simple reason for that is you'll understand once I get from 4 to 1 on my list.
Okay.
I don't want to give anything away.
Don't give it away.
But it makes plenty sense.
I was a little shocked. I thought he might be higher for you, but okay. But you've got him at 5.
So if you think that Polanco is maybe a bit deserving to be in, say, the top 3 or top 4, I'm really intrigued to see what your list is going to be. So let's throw it back to you now, Dex. It's time for you to catch this one, and let's go ahead and let it rip with number 5.
All right. I caught that one because Wardy was able to lead off so great there. So for me at number 5 is a guy who the Mets looked at last year to get at the trade deadline. They finally get him here in the offseason. That's Luis Robert Jr.
Nice.
Now, look, here's why, to me, he's really important for the Mets. We know what this guy could be. We saw it a couple years ago, the high of him being an all-star, being a tremendous hitter. Last year, okay season, right? But here's the key with Luis Robert Jr. Can he stay healthy? You guys heard me talk about this. Availability. Availability is the best ability, and we don't know that with him. Him staying healthy is going to be the key to this 2026 season. The other thing is you are relying on him, the Mets that is, to play elite-level defense in center field. You need him to do that. If he's not available, what are you doing there? We're putting Tyrone Taylor back out there again. If he makes the team, Carson Bench, are you going to try to put him there? We talked about this before. The Mets don't really see him as that. They see him more as a corner outfielder, take some of the pressure off him. So if Luis Robert hits, and when I say hits, I mean hits is a fit in for this team in the lineup, this is going to be good. We know how gifted he is. We know how talented he is in center field. Is he going to be there every day? Now, look, the Mets have been taking it easy with him here in spring training. He's trying to get healthy. I'm sure he'll get some reps in as well there too. But when you look at the stats, right, from last year, and you look at it with him, he only played in 110 games. You want more than that from him this year. You need more than that from this year because, look, there's uncertainty in the outfield. Let's keep it a buck, right? You've got a new left fielder here in Soto, moving from right field to left field, although that does not concern me as much as some other people. And I'm sure we'll get to Juan Soto at some point in this later. But you have Carson Bench potentially, or Mike Tauchman, who could be playing over there. Mike Tauchman's got experience, but this is a whole new outfield. You know what you like in center field? Some stability there. But we're going to bring up that U word again. There's some uncertainty here once more with him. You also would like to see the average be a little bit higher. 223 last year. Can he get on base a little bit better? Only a 297 on base percentage. This is a guy we know who can do that a bit more. He hit 14 homers last year. I think the exciting thing for me, too, is if he stays in the lineup, is the stolen base potential. That's the real exciting thing for me. He can wreak havoc on the base pass. The Mets are going to need that. I think they're a team that's trying to be a little bit more dynamic this year. We expect that. So for me, Luis Robert Jr., yes, a lot of uncertainty with the health, but the Mets need him. They need him, and they need his defense in center field.
They need a Luis Robert in more ways than one, Dex, because I not only agree with you, but there's so many reasons as to why I agree with you. And let's start with the obvious, okay? Mm-hmm. Under David Stearns, He's been here now entering year 3 as team president. What has the Mets center field configuration usually been? It's been Tyrone Taylor and Harrison Bader, or Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri. Something along those lines. Or even Jeff McNeil was the Mets' best center fielder in 2025, just to give you guys a grasp of how the season went.
Yes.
So now as we enter 2026, you have Tyrone Taylor still here, still trying to compete, still trying to stay on this roster. You have Mike Tauchman, who's perfectly fine in the corner outfield if you want him there, or at DH, separate from bench. But Luis Robert is the biggest wild card in the best way possible for this Mets team, okay? Not only, as you highlighted, have the Mets shown previous interest in him going back to the trade deadline, and they're like, we're not giving up a Kane's ransom for a guy that hasn't had an OPS above 700 each of the past year. So we can't do that. Regardless on how elite defensively and base running is, you need to make sure that you're more in our category when it comes to value. And that happened because he had an additional $20 million added to his salary at the end of 2025, and that made him not nearly as desirable for the amount of assets you'd have to give up. So the Mets give up Acuna, they land him. They're essentially paying $40 million this year, Dex, for a outfielder who hasn't put up significant offensive numbers in 3 years.
3 years. Yep.
Why would the New York Mets and David Stearns go the lengths to do such a thing? And it's because of that 2023 season. It's because of the breakout potential of someone who can give you 30-plus home runs, have an 800 or higher OPS, have, a WRC plus anywhere from the 25 to 50 range if things really go right for you. And you have an elite defender in center. You have an elite base runner that can steal north of 30-plus bags for you per season. As long as he can stay healthy. As you mentioned, Luis Robert is a game changer for this New York Mets lineup. If he at all can perform to what we saw in stretches while he was in Southside with the White Sox on a 500 ball club, mind you, just imagine what he can do batting, say, 6th or 7th in this Mets lineup where he's not even viewed as the guy.
No.
He's going to get attacked more than ever. It's now going to be a clear opportunity where he has now a chance to rejuvenate himself, get excited about his career again now that he's on a team that's trying to win. A lot of players he's friends with, including Juan Soto, who he's been training with this offseason at the Scott Boras facilities. There's a lot of rapport and connection there, as is a lot with Mike Tauchman, his former teammate, and they batted back-to-back in the lab last year. Robert is the guy. The floor with him is Tyrone Taylor defense and base running, and a bat that still will give you more pop. The ceiling is a top center fielder in all the National League.
If the Mets have the floor of what you just said, to me, it's very disappointing. Now, people may hear me say that and be like, Dex, well, why didn't you have him up higher on your list? Well, it's the availability and it's the uncertainty of that. That's why he's at number 5. Just want to say, I think he's highly important. I think the word you used, you said wild card a couple of times. Yes, he's an absolute wild card because if you get that ceiling that you talked about that looks anything close to 2023, oh, now you're cooking. If you get 75% of 2023, I think Mets fans would sign for that in a heartbeat. So that's why he's number 5 for me. Did I think about putting him up higher? Absolutely. But just the uncertainty, and I just don't know if he's going to be healthy. If you could tell me you lock it in and tell me he's going to play, I'll say 135 games. Just that. I'm saying 135 games. I think you're good with that.
I think you're very good with that.
Yeah.
Because on top of it, I think 135 naturally happens. Not just from, unfortunately dealing with slight ailments, but just he's going to have off days. The Mets are going to play very smart with him because as of now, he's not even going to be in physical game action to make his spring training debut that isn't on the minor league backfields at Clover Park this upcoming Thursday of this week per Carlos Mendoza, Mets skipper. So that's the first time we're really going to see true game action. And they're doing this because they're slow rolling the development and working on the progress with his lower half of his body. Mendoza has stated that we're trying our best to avoid ailment as we get into the season. So the Mets early in camp noticed things about Robert where maybe the White Sox didn't pay as much attention to or pick up on as much, and that has unfortunately been in the past to their detriment. Hopefully for the Mets, they pick up on these things early enough, and you get, as you mentioned, 135 games out of Robert. This is a guy that had an 800 OPS in the second half last year and batted 20% above league average against lefties. Why won't he be well? Why can't he perform? I don't think it's a matter of if, but when he does.
All right. We hope that he does. Okay, we gave our number 5s. There you go. Now you go into number 4. Go ahead.
Number 4, this is a fun one because this is a guy that not long ago I would easily have a number 1. You could rightfully argue.
Oh.
Okay? You could also argue that he's the unofficial captain of this team. Just can't make it official because Steve Cohen's never going to allow that. He said it himself. And that's Francisco Lindor, okay? Lindor had a Jekyll and Hyde season last year, as we know, in the sense of at home, hearing my girl, seeing his wifey and his kids there, electric. One of the best players in baseball. On the road, not with wifey, not with the kids, not looking good. Just a guy that was a shell of himself. Like when you have an OPS north of 1,000, if not higher at home, and you have an OPS in the 600 range on the road, that's significant, and you can't have that with the top player like Lindor. Right. You need more consistency with him. And I mean, it goes without saying, shortstop is arguably the most important position for this Mets team outside of center field, right? When looking at defensive range, then you bring in the plus that you get offensively. Then you add in that he is an elite switch hitter when he is right. Like, there's so many elements to Lindor's game. And then you add in the fact that, unfortunately for him, he has to start the year late. You know, he's going to be lucky to get in some game action for spring training games before spring's all wrapped up. And then he'll be likely starting opening day. We'll be there, Dex, and you're going to see there against those, against Paul Skeens and the Pirates, you know, Francisco Lindor that might not be ready offensively yet. That might look like a bit of a slow roll. So even
Except he starts off slow all the time. We kind of know.
I know he does. He's very Jekyll and Hyde with that too. It's been rare. Sometimes he's given us hot starts, and I appreciate that, but I don't expect that. I expect the worst, and I hope for the best. That's the Mets fan way. But the thing with Francisco Lindor, though, is that if you have him healthy, as you anticipate to do, if you get him in similar production as you've had, he's one of the best shortstops in baseball. And then you add in the leadership qualities, okay? For all the captain talk that we've joked about and we've went back and forth on over the past number of months, it still holds true that Lindor has been highly deemed and respected as a leader in this clubhouse for so long for a great reason. He's always been a vocal leader. It's not just about, you know, walking the walk, but he talks the talk too. He does both things simultaneously. And having that kind of leader, that kind of fixture in your clubhouse, and someone who at his best is so charismatic, you know, just like Freddie Peralta and some of these other players in the Mets clubhouse now, like they're just always happy and having a good time. That rubs off on players, especially young players, really well. And I know that if the Mets go anywhere this year, it'll be 1,000% with Francisco Lindor, a massive factor to help them get there.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy, and I know some people may listen to you say that and be like, well, it's obvious with Lindor. He's one of the best players on the team. But I think you did a great job of showing the value in what we saw with those home and road splits last season.
Right.
And if it's a little bit more consistent, which we know can happen, we know we can get that from Francisco Lindor, that does change a lot for the Mets season. And listen, I don't want to make everything into some of the clubhouse stuff and everything we heard, but I do think, and you and I talked about this before, I do think with some of the changes now that are here around the clubhouse, maybe also Francisco Lindor, who's an absolute leader in that clubhouse and is absolutely adored, maybe just relaxes him a little bit. The same way I think it'll also relax Juan Soto and other guys in a year or two, or Marcus Semien coming in, etc. I think he's more relaxed. I like your pick of Lindor there. I think that's fine. For me at number 4, I'm going with another newcomer here. That's Bichette.
Nice.
Okay?
Another good one.
Look, like Bichette, I've always liked him as a player, but we could talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room here is, how's he going to play at third base? Now, I'm not as concerned about this. And I've been talking about this with one of our producers here. It's like, okay, look, many shortstops have made the move from short to third. We have seen this tons of times in baseball. I think it'll be fine with reps, right? I think we're going to have to see reps. Now, does it need to be looking right? Yes, because the Mets have talked about run prevention. We've heard that all at the end of last season. David Stern said that we were not good at run prevention. It can't be a mess. But I think Bichette's going to figure it out. Do I think there'll be some growing pains, Wardy? Absolutely.
Right.
Do I think there'll be a time or two in the game he airmails a throw? Sure, it'll happen. But I think this guy's committed with reps. And when I asked him that at his press conference, and I asked him about that, he was like, no, look, I'm confident in being able to do this. I'm going to put in the work. He went down early. He was working with Carlos Mendoza. I think this is a guy that wants to put in the work. But what excites me the most about him is, one, I think he'll figure that out. It's the bat. He's a bat that I like, right? I love the bat-to-ball skills. He's going to make contact. He's going to get on base. Last year, 3.8 F-WAR. He's so valuable to a lineup. He's going to keep rallies going. This is the kind of guy I love in the Mets lineup. I just think it's great. Look, so far through spring training, he's 4 for 15. He's doing all right, not to do too much with spring training. 583 OPS. It's in limited numbers, right? It's got a double, 6 games played. This is a guy I think that was a seamless fit into the Mets lineup. Seamless fit. And if he's hitting right and hitting well, and even if he gives you, I'll say, above average defense at third in year 1, right? We'll see how much longer he is in a Mets uniform. But if he gives you that above average defense, I think that is huge for the Metropolitans here. Absolutely huge. And I think he's the kind of guy in signing in an offseason where Mets fans, you were all disappointed about the fact you weren't able to get Kyle Tucker, right? And then the Mets pivoted and got Bichette. I didn't see it coming, Wardy. I know you didn't see it coming.
No, I did not.
Right?
Not
at all
at all.
whatsoever. But I think we're both happy that he's here on the team. And I just think that I'm just really excited about his, bat-to-ball skills. That's the thing that excites me the most. He's a guy who's going to get on base. He's got a good eye. The fielding stuff, I think, will take care of itself. Is it a concern? I don't know where you are on this. It's a low-level concern for me because I expect him to figure this out.
It's a low-level concern because the difference between Bo Bichette maybe struggling at third and a Mark Vientos is that for certain Bo is going to be able to back it up with the bat. There is no hesitation.
Facts.
Okay?
Yes.
He has the track record. He has every single thing that you need to have that level of confidence. And I love this pick for Bo. 100% right. I mean, not only does he come from, obviously, a family where they've been known for having great offense, not just for him, but for his father, too. This is a guy who's always known hitting from a very young age. And he's been around baseball his entire life. We think of talking next right before we got started, Jalen Brunson, and him always being around since the start because of his father. The same exact thing can be had with Bo Bichette from the start for him. And you've seen that with his performance. You've seen that with his confidence and his comfortability every single time since he made his debut in his early 20s back in 2020, 2021 range as a Toronto Blue Jay with his now teammate again, Marcus Semien, who was a fantastic mentor for him. Not only is that relationship rekindled great for the Mets, and I think going to be great for them this season and being comfortable right away and acclimated, but Bichette, as you said with the bat, is exactly why Mets fans are going to be able to stomach the loss of Pete Alonso a lot quicker than maybe they initially thought. Bo Bichette is as good as any with runners in scoring position. I mean, I'm getting giddy thinking about it, okay? There are few batters better than Bo Bichette with runners on base in general throughout baseball. I mean, we saw this guy batting well above 40+% above league average over this past year in that regard. Then you see what he does when it comes to postseason play. Oh, yeah, I need to step up in the World Series. No problem, buddy. Oh, I need to hit tanks off of Shohei Ohtani. What, you need more than one? Okay, what don't you need from me? I will do for you. That's... Bo Bichette has shown every single ability from an offensive standpoint to be yes, he's worth the $40+ million the Mets are investing. And then with the tax, it's really $60+ million.
Yeah.
But it's that defense, Dex. Are the Mets going to be able to get above league average defense out of him? I don't know. But they don't need him to. And I think that's the best scenario about him. They just need him to be that bat-first player that he has been in his career.
If they do, it's really dope. Really, really dope if that happens. Even if they don't, I think the biggest point you made is he's a primetime player. We saw this on the stage in the World Series last year. Last thing before we move on to number 3, Wardy. How many players have we seen the Mets sign over the years come to New York and not be able to handle it?
Right.
The one thing from talking to him at his press conference too, and then talking to David Stearns about him as well, that stood out to me was they think this is a guy that can handle New York. And I understand why they believe that. We've seen him perform on the big stage. All the numbers you said back it up. This is a guy who can get on base. And I think Mets fans should expect him to be clutch. Now, you brought up your boy, Pete Alonso. And some fans are going to say, wow, Wardy, he's not going to have the power Pete Alonso is. Man, forget all that. Forget all that.
Look
you
at
know
doubles.
what I want? Thank you. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And I want clutch hits when it counts. That's what matters. That's not shade to Pete Alonso.
No.
It's just, I think, more of what the Mets lineup need. And I think you and I agree on that philosophically in terms of team building. But it's just more of what they need, and I think he's a guy that just absolutely fits that. So I'm glad you like my pick at number 4.
Yeah, you need more clutch players. And listen, Pete was very clutch last year. You could argue that he was, at many moments, especially in the first half, the most clutch hitter for the New York Mets. I mean, he looked great for a good stretch of time. But like anything else, with a slugger like him, as a profile, you're going to go through highs and you're going to go through lows. The beauty about a guy like Bichette is that he's even keel, even Steven right in the middle. Being a steady, right around 300 hitter, that's going to give you as many doubles as anyone in literally Major League Baseball, and then have that same, if not better, production with runners in scoring position. He doesn't need 130 RBIs and 40 home runs to show his offensive value, and thankfully the Mets have built a lineup so deep now that, God willing, you shouldn't have to be a team that's banking solely on that Pete Alonso type power as they had to a degree in years past.
Yeah, that's the kind of team I like. I don't know about you, but that's the kind of team I like. Well, people will learn more about that, me, in terms of team building. All right, so Bo Bichette at number 4 for me. Who you got at number 3?
This is short, sweet. We're going right to it. It's Juan Soto. And before you say, whoa, Wardy, what do you mean Juan Soto is in number 1? Guys, you're going to understand in literally a couple minutes once it gets to number 2. I promise. It makes sense. It makes so much sense, actually. Juan Soto is the most important player to the Mets from the standpoint of, for the amount of money you invested, for him being the face of the franchise, and for him needing to be the key focal point into how far you get from an offensive standpoint. You don't look at Juan Soto for the defense, right? He's going to be probably a full-time DH in the next half decade. You look at him solely for the amazing offense, and now, over the past year, elite base running. I mean, who had north of 40 stolen bags on their bingo card year one with the Mets? I didn't. I know you didn't. Don't stop lying. You didn't have it. So the point I'm trying to make with Juan Soto and what I love so much about him, outside of just all the obvious accolades, bursting on the scene, winning a World Series as soon as he literally replaces Bryce Harper for the Nationals, and then has all the success even in New York, goes to the World Series in the Bronx, leaves them to come to the Mets. I mean, what is there not to love about Juan? So the only thing I really have to add to this is that, again, you'll understand picks 2 and 1 here in a second, I promise. But Juan Soto, as important as ever, and there's a lot of pressure on him, especially now that the core's gone, Dex. It's Soto and Lindor's team, first and foremost. It wasn't that a year ago. Regardless of Soto being given the big bucks, it wasn't his team. He was entering a clubhouse that was already established. That clubhouse has been dismantled. It's gone. And you know what Steve Cohen said? Soto, Lindor, it's time for you guys to help rebuild it. Yeah. So now it's going to be up to Soto to see how he does in more of this leadership role than he ever has been in his career. And I think he's going to run with it between the great success he's having in the WBC. Just had a walk-off bomb today that we saw against the Netherlands, which was awesome. But it's now he's comfortable. For the first time in his career, he knows he's home, Dex. He doesn't need to worry each year. He can just relax, do his thing, but now because it's his team, he can really get involved in every facet in ways that he wasn't doing this time a year ago. You know what I mean?
I think it's a great point you make. I think last year, I'm not saying there's any certainty. I think he was feeling things out, the change coming from the Yankees, feeling out the organization, his teammates, knowing that there's still and Alonso was there, McNeil was still there, and Nimmo was still there, along with Lindor. It's a great point you're making. I know it's crazy to say because he had 38 stolen bases last year, right? I think he's going to do 40-40 this year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have a major year. I mean, somebody wants to put out, not telling you to bet, but if you want to bet that might be a good one. I think he can do 40-40. I know no Antoine Richardson. I get all that. But I still think he's going to do a great job on the base pass. Yeah, and I think comfortability is huge. So I understand why you have him at number 3. Now, comfortability you mentioned here. A little different than what I went at number 3 because I'm not sure Mets fans are comfortable with this guy.
Ooh.
I'm not sure you guys are comfortable, and that is Devin Williams. Number 3 most important
what a
man.
Pick.
Most
this
important.
Is a good one, Dex.
I could have put this man at number 1. I could have put him at number 1. Because here's the thing. I'm gonna tell you why he's ranked this high, but I'm also gonna tell you why you might want to have a little bit of optimism. Might. Keyword is might. I'm not sure there is anybody on this Mets roster, Wardy, that more needs a good start to the season, particularly at Citi Field, than Devin Williams. If Devin Williams does not perform well, right? Because I understand a lot of people miss the trumpets. Wardy's going to miss the trumpets. I miss the trumpets. Nobody's happy the trumpets are out in L.A. We get it. But Devin Williams, shaky start with the Yankees. So there's going to be the talk, can he pitch in New York? I just mentioned that about Bichette. But what you know about Bichette, primetime player. You know that he can get it done. Can Devin Williams get it done? Look, didn't start off well for him in the Bronx last year. But here's the optimism a little bit, right? He did finish with 8 wins, 23 holds, because he went back into the setup role, alternated with Luke Weaver, who's also on this team now, interestingly enough. 2.5 ERA, whip was 1.19. His numbers were not bad, and he was much better in the second half of the season. So if that carries over, and maybe he's a little bit more comfortable pitching in New York, maybe more comfortable pitching in Queens rather than Bronx, which is the better place you would want to be.
Of course.
I knew you'd agree with me on that. If he's a closer that can make Mets fans, and I know this is asking a lot, and it's asking a lot for you too, Wardy, forget about Edwin Diaz. That means he would have been pitching really, really well. The Mets need him to be a stopper. I still have questions about this Mets bullpen and how it's all going to come about, right? It's probably, other than starting pitcher in one part of his team, that I'm really I still need to see more how this comes together. But if he's lights out, if he's a stopper, that changes everything for this team. The Mets need Devin Williams to look like Milwaukee Devin Williams, just except not giving up that home run to Pete Alonso. That's what you need him to look like. Can he pitch like he did 2 years ago? That's going to be the key. Now, look, the fastball is looking pretty decent thus far through the spring. We'll see how it holds up going forward. But I just think if he's that anchor, if he's that stopper at the back of the bullpen, and you don't even hear us saying, if we don't mention Edwin Diaz's name come mid-May, it's a good thing. If we are mentioning his name, not so good. If this guy blows a couple of saves in April, especially at Citi Field, you know the Boo Birds are going to be out. And it's not going to be good. I could argue, I said third most important, but he might have the most pressure than any other Met on this roster this year. And so this is why he has a high level of importance, and I think he's got to be good for this Mets pen.
I'm glad that you mentioned pressure, right,
yes.
towards the end of everything you're breaking down with D-Well there, because I agree. When it comes to pressure, he is probably one of the, if not the most pressured player entering year one with the Mets. But I'm going to give slight pushback twofold.
Okay.
Just on the following. One, Devin Williams, the reason why I wouldn't go the lengths of putting him one is relievers are so fickle as is that
fair point.
Every team needs to build a bullpen that can operate with withstanding losing a loss of one top reliever. And even though Devin Williams is supposed to be our guy, a closer, the Mets need to make sure that they are positioned where whether it is from someone else actively in their bullpen or someone else internally, when we think of the Ryan Lamberts of the world that could be a future closer for this organization, maybe as soon as the season, I do see people that could be pieces of the puzzle and saving some games for the Mets and not named Devin Williams this year. So
this year, okay, so this year you see that.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. I don't think it'll be solely Devin. I think there will be moments where that changes a bit, either because of inconsistencies or just because it makes sense given the matchup, stuff like that.
Do you think that the Mets will have a short leash? So let's say something happens like what I said. He blows 2 games in April.
I don't think they're going to have an insanely short leash. No, because there isn't really a reason to. And I'm going to scratch my other point on the pushback. Let's just get into talking about D-Well, because the main thing that I noticed with him from what he stated to the media after arriving with the Mets and even just concluding his year with the Yankees last year was that his main reasoning as to why he did not succeed when he first landed with the Yankees in that first half was mainly just because he had no clue how to navigate being a New Yorker, okay? It's as stereotypical as you pry a guy from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to come into New York and the Bronx and just for him to get acclimated without a problem. No, it was a big culture shift for him. And he was really navigating, just trying to travel to games on the daily and trying to go about what was best for that. It was very not the norm for him. And he reiterated that was key factors between that and getting a living situation in order behind why he did not have the success they had, because he had other things on his mind. He just wasn't able to focus,
which is fair,
have the type of regiment that he wanted. Once he got in that regimen after that first month and a half, 2 months last year, he was perfectly fine for the Yankees for the most part. All the underlying numbers are very much on the norm with his career, if not better. So I think of Devin Williams back with David Stearns. He's been arguably the best closer in baseball every time that David Stearns has been his president or GM. So that's all I really have to look at with it.
You're saying the connection of being back with Stearns will help him out.
Yes, okay. So I really do think it will. Because, again, same thing with Freddie Peralta, for example. These are guys that David knows so well. And that's important when you've been with these kids since they were little teenagers, watching their development, understanding their mentality, understanding what makes them work and what doesn't, and how to adjust if, say, there is an issue happening, something that goes awry, something along those lines. Williams is unbelievably vital to the Mets this year. I 100% agree with you, but I do not think he is going to have the early lack of success he had with the Yankees last year. If it happens, it happens.
I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too, because I know how it's going to be. You're all going to throw tomatoes at me. I understand. I'll inevitably get in the live streams, but it's part of the course. We're here to talk Mets, are we not?
No, it's so. You're making a point that I make on other shows, and I think it's a fair one. So I have to call myself out as accurately as you put it out there. I think oftentimes when it comes to athletes, I'm glad we're having this discussion, we sometimes forget there are people too.
Right.
They're not robots. And Devin Williams did say that at his introductory press conference to the media and talked about the challenges of navigating the city and doing that. And yes, look, if you come from living in Milwaukee and going to the games, and I've been to Milwaukee, and if you're anywhere around the city, it's very easy to get to Miller Park, right? And you can just do that. It is much different than trying to get to the Bronx. If anybody's been, on the, anywhere around, whether it's the BQE, whether it's the Cross Bronx, it can be a nightmare, especially before a 7:00 game. So I get all that, and I think it's more than a fair point. And you just wonder about that. We're going to use another word, another C word. We're using comfortability, right? How much that can impact him. I think it's a fair point. I had skepticism, when he was signed. To be fully transparent, I was like, okay, this is a great setup guy for Edwin Diaz.
Oh, I'm with you. I was the
That's
same
where
way.
I was. You know what I mean? I was like, this would be a great setup guy for Edwin Diaz. And I'm like, oh, he's going to be the closer? Now, another point you made. I thought you made some good points. I like the pushback. You're right. Sometimes we got to trust the people that trust the signings and the people they knew in terms of developing them, in terms of watching them play, in terms of watching them perform in different situations. I don't think that David Stearns brings this guy in here if he doesn't think he can handle it. Now,
exactly.
Does he have to prove it off of last year? Because some people may say, and I tried to give some optimism. He was really good in the second half. When you look at the counting stats, they're not bad for the whole season. It's just that first half of the season, the Yankee fans discarded him, and that was it. I think the other point is, if he does falter, to your point, how willing are the Mets to then go to two other arms? Are we talking Luke Weaver? Are we talking Lambert or Ross, who we've talked about before, arms that have a lot of upside for the Mets? It shall be interesting. But I do think you bring up a good point.
The final thing I'll say about him is that, put some respect on Devin Williams' name. I feel like people just don't do that enough. They think, because he gave up a couple home runs at Yankee Stadium with the short porch, that's a problem. He's a two-time Trevor Hoffman National League Reliever of the Year Award winner. You know who also is a two-time National League Reliever of the Year Award winner? Edwin Diaz, okay? And when asked about how is he going to fill the shoes of Edwin Diaz, Devin said point blank to the media this year to begin spring, can we maybe focus on the fact that I'm really good too? Like, why are we forgetting this? Like, seriously, we're going to let a month and a half, 2 months sample size completely eradicate what I've done for the past half decade? Okay, that's fine. Let Devin Williams go into the season with a chip on his shoulder. I'm telling you,
I like a player with a chip on the shoulder. Only thing I know too about this, Wardy, is the people want their trumpets back. That's what they want. They want their trumpets back.
It's killing me seeing him rocket for Team Puerto Rico. On to the next.
Move on to number two. What you got?
Nolan McLean. Very obvious why it's Nolan McLean, okay? And if you don't know, if you don't think it's obvious, let me explain why, Dex, okay?
Let the people know.
What was the main issue for the Mets last year besides not having a clutch gene in their body from an offensive standpoint? Going 0-72, I believe, entering the ninth inning, trailing a run or more. It was competence in their rotation. From June onward, from Kodai Senga to Griffin Canning to Tyler McGill, all going down with injury, to Sean Manaea never looking comfortable returning from his second injury and then dealing with another that year, as well as Frankie Montas having a full month of rehab, not looking good, coming back and then going down and looking terrible again. The Mets had no stability with their rotation for literally over half the season last year. Nolan McLean was the first semblance of stability, and that did not begin until he was called up deep into the second half, post-trade deadline, as we got into August. What Nolan McLean did in just a 50-inning sample size or so was better than anything any other starter did for the Mets this past season, Dexter. And now you add in the fact that this is the first full year for Nolan McLean where you're hoping to get anywhere from 150 to 170 innings out of him, ideally. It's going to be the heaviest workload for him. If he can bring you that while giving you the performance that you have seen at this point, if not better, the sky's the limit when it comes to the upside with the true leaders in this rotation. And McLean will be one of them. And he may very well be the one by time this season has concluded, if not much before. Nolan McLean's that guy. I don't know how else to put it. And McLean is not a key factor for the Mets this year. I don't feel nearly as confident when it comes to their rotation. Like, genuinely scared if Nolan McLean is not the guy that we need him to be, as things currently stand.
This is going to be very interesting, too, who I have as my number two. So I'm not pushing back on you on this. I just have a question. Do you think the Mets fan base is expecting too much of Nolan McLean? Not you specifically, but do you think overall the fan base, the vibe, the energy you get from the fans, are they expecting too much from Nolan McLean?
No, I don't think they are, because Nolan is the one who set the standard. You can't just make your MLB debut and have a stretch of your first 5 starts and do things that almost no other pitcher in Major League Baseball has done and just think, oh, we should just view him as just any other Joe Schmo. This is Nolan blank McLean we're talking about. Like, that's the conversation we're in at the moment. So, no, every fan should have the expectation that Nolan McLean should be as good as any top starter in the National League this year. That is the bar that we're setting. The bar is an all-star caliber pitcher and hopefully giving you at least 150 innings.
That would be huge.
Yes.
Huge.
And they need it. They absolutely do.
I think a lot of people now, I said it would be my next one, but this will tie into who I get to with number one because it's interesting here. But my number two, great points on McLean. and I had him. He was like on the fringe of my list. I thought about getting him in there. My number 2 is Francisco Alvarez.
Actually, great pick.
Yeah.
Really good pick.
And for me, this ties into some of the other stuff we talked about. This is why this discussion has been so good, Wardy, because you talked about how just having other guys in the lineup, we talked about this with Luis Robert Jr., takes pressure off him. We've been waiting for Alvarez to look like he did when we first saw him come up for the Mets. We've been waiting to see that again. Where's this guy again? Now, look, last year, rough year. But the key thing for me was he took the demotion down to Syracuse and handled it amazingly well, came back, got hit. Unfortunately, he had the bad injury luck with his hand. But he really helped the offense when they were floundering in the second half. He was one of the actually more consistent producers. 970 OPS over his final 17 games of the season. We know the power this guy has. We know how the pitching staff loves him. They love working with him. If he's comfortable at the plate because there's less pressure on him now and he can now flourish into the hit of the Mets and Mets fans believe that he can be, I think this lineup goes to another level. This is why I have him even higher than Bo Bichette. I think we know what Bo Bichette is. We know he's a professional hitter. We know what he's going to do. Uncertainty, right? And for Alvarado, we're going to bring up the U word again, availability. I think if he's available with the tweaks he's made down in Syracuse learning last year, and he came back with more confidence, a full spring training here, he was healthy. We got to remember that about him last year. Wasn't healthy during spring training, missed some of the starter season, came back, then got hurt again. If he's got that and can take and build upon what we saw for those final 17 games of last year, again, 970 OPS, guys. He was really damn good. If he can do that again, I think that he can be a consistent contributor to this lineup. I think he can change this lineup really with just his presence and what he's done. And I just think he's going to be more comfortable this year if he's healthy. If he's healthy, he swings a lot for this lineup, in my opinion. And you know what I think people aren't counting on a little bit? You want to talk about all the power you lost with Pete Alonso? Alvarez, with locked in, can give you some of that power. I think this lineup is way more dynamic, and I know you agree with me on that, but Alvarez can give you some of that power.
Dex, the main thing that fans need to remember with Francisco Alvarez, as he currently stands, his current age, most catchers in Major League Baseball are just making their Major League debuts. Some haven't even yet. Point. And he's entering, what, year 4?
Yep.
Okay? Like, I think
we
it's
forget
easy.
that sometimes.
It's easy to write off Alvarez because he had such a big rookie year that we saw a couple years ago. And even though the batting average and on base wasn't there, he's a 21-year-old hitting 20-plus bombs his rookie year. Who doesn't matter? And unfortunately for him, you had a former hitting coach that we're not even going to say the name because it's not worth it, to go out of his way to just pretty much say, you know what, Alvarez, we have so much more work to do, instead of uplifting him and having him continue to work on his power game, which is why the Mets give him a fat signing bonus at the age of 16 out of Venezuela all those years ago as a top IFA prospect. But what do I know for just thinking it's best to keep a player in the exact position that he's been in his whole career to continue to have success instead of completely throwing it in the gutter and doing something different. It's not like Alvarez has changed his approach like 5 times the past 2 years just to get a flow of things, because he has all these different people on his different shoulders speaking in his ears saying what's right, what isn't. Finally, after going down to AAA last year, working with Jeff Albert, who's working with the Mets at the Major League level now for hitting, and working with JPR and Sebia, who's now the Mets catching coach, who, as we know, is a former Major League catcher. Those are the kind of people Alvarez needs to be around and hearing constant input on. And they're the ones that not only helped him get right towards the end of last year, but they're the same ones that are going to be in his ear constantly as we enter now 2026. He's batting 500 already this spring in a very limited sample size, but very encouraging. And having a healthy Alvarez for the first time since his rookie campaign, Dex, to your point, you think of where do you find that home run power that you lost to Alonso and Nimmo? It's right there. You have a lock of 20-plus home runs as long as Alvarez just doesn't lose his power swing. But it appears that he's now starting to find that again with the great approach and adjustments that he has made.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see what he can do this year, maybe more than any other player in this Mets lineup, because I'm very big on mental approach, and I liked his approach going down and how he came back. He did not sulk. This guy went down.
And a lot of players would. It's not an easy game, especially if you're going through. Point. Especially when you hit a high so early like him. You're only like 21 years of age, and you have that success, and then you deal with ailment each of the next like 2.5 years, throws off any type of consistency you could have. And then you're constantly dealing with, the boo birds and, the fluctuation from the fans, from the media, from talking heads like myself too, where we fluctuate with how we feel because naturally it's a results-oriented business.
Yeah.
How do young players handle that? Some don't handle it well, but to your point, Alvarez not only handled it in stride, but it really just shows how mature he is for such a young age.
Yeah, I think that spoke volumes to me. Now, look, that's all nice. He's got to produce this year. So
right.
I know you're not saying that either. He's got to get it done, but it spoke a lot to me that he handled it maturely and that he seems to have the mental makeup to be able to play here and bounce back from even when he heard the boo birds. And I think he wants to be great. So I like that. All right, we're at number 1 already. Who do you have at number 1?
At number 1, drum roll please. It's Freddie Peralta, okay? How can it not be Freddie Peralta? It has to be Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta is the most important player that you landed this offseason if your name is David Stern's president of the New York Mets. You could say it's Bichette because of the offense, sure, but pitching is what is going to carry the Mets. This will be their stronghold this year, along with their offense, obviously. And Freddie Peralta, what would he have done if he was in the Mets rotation last year? Oh, yeah, he would have been the Mets' best starter.
Easily.
Between innings, quality of innings, and obviously those numbers. Like, Freddie Peralta typically doesn't go deep into starts. Like, he's not a guy like a Sandy Alcantara that you're going to consistently get 7 innings out of. He's more of that 5 to 6 inning guy, which is more the norm with today's game, unfortunately. But he does that at such high quality of a rate, and he does it so consistently that Freddie's only one of 3 starters the past 3 years that's been able to give you 30 starts or more. 9 starters. So he's an elite company in that regard over the past 3 seasons.
Availability.
It's an important thing, but even with the limitations in these starts, he still had 176 plus innings last year that would have led the Mets. So think about that. He would have led the Mets in innings for the most part, and he would have been overall their most quality from start to finish. Freddie Peralta brings everything you want. He brings the charismatic, extrovert personality, a guy who really wants to be here, has stated on numerous occasions, Dex, this was my preferred destination for me and my family. This is what we wanted. That's why I want to be here long term. And that's why I do think an extension will happen at some point this year, either before opening day or at some point throughout the course of the season. But Freddie Peralta just will take this rotation to another level, bring a level of certainty that was so uncertain a year ago for this team. And more than anything else, you're bringing in a weapon where you don't trade top prospects Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams unless you have the confidence that this is a needle mover to take you to another level from where things currently are. That's Freddie Peralta for this Mets rotation.
I love that. He was not on my list because I think I looked at him with so much certainty, but just because you feel certain about something doesn't mean that person's not important.
Right.
To the point that you were making, Wardy, he is important because the Mets need that certainty. They didn't have that last year. He's an absolute game changer for this rotation, absolute game changer for this entire team, for sure. Now, as Wardy just talked about certainty.
Yeah, I'm talking about my number one. Let's go to the uncertain number one.
Yes,
from you.
my uncertain number one, and it definitely is that. For me, number 1 here is Kodai Senga.
Okay, there we go.
Kodai Senga. I don't know if anybody more on this roster, and it sounds like I'm saying that a lot about a bunch of players, it's a make or break year for me for Kodai Senga. Now, let me say this. I think you talked about putting some respect on Devin Williams' name. I think we got to put some respect on Kodai Senga's name. Kodai Senga, if you look at him and you think about it as a signing, he's been one of the Mets' actual best signings in the history of free agent signings in the history of this franchise. When he's healthy, again, availability, uncertainty, he performs. We know that he performs. He's got a career 3 ERA, okay? The Mets are 32-20 when Senga started for them over the last 3 years. That's the 12th best team winning percentage for a starter in that span with at least 50 decisions, okay? That's just ahead of Spencer Strider and Zach Wheeler. Pretty good company to be in there, right? But we understand that the thing about Senga is availability and health. Got off to a great start, although some people might look at the starts last year at the beginning and say it was, it was a little shaky, maybe it was a little bit of fool's gold. He looked pretty dominant. He got injured, came back, never looked the same, was trying to find his mechanics. He's talked about that this spring training, that he was unhappy with his mechanics. He's now been working on it. He feels good that he's getting back to it. The fastball in his first start was really good. It was really good. It was the highest I think he had hit his fastball in 2 years.
Yeah, he touched 99. He hasn't done that in forever.
Right.
Yes.
So, and look, you and I, we're smart enough. We've watched enough baseball. We're not going to start, going crazy over just that. But it's an encouraging sign.
Right.
We know he can pitch. We know what the guy can do. We know about the ghost fork and being amazed by it and how it can deceive batters. But he's got to get it done and put it together for a whole season. He's got to give you starts. He's got to give you innings. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay confident. Because, again, when he's on the mound, that stat I just gave, the 3 ERA and the Mets' record in those 52 games is great. It's 12 games over 500. If he's on the mound, the Mets usually win. He's usually giving you a quality start. The problem is sometimes he's not on the mound. So for me, I think I trust Freddie Peralta, as you mentioned before. I think I know what Freddie Peralta is going to give me. I don't know if Kodai Senga is going to be there. If Kodai Senga is there, I know what he can do when he can pitch. So I think for him, it's a lot about confidence in his mechanics. It's about availability. And if he's there and he pitches, we just ask, pitch like a number 2. Because if everything also happens with what you said with Nolan McLean, if Nolan McLean is cooking, if Freddie Peralta is doing what you think he's going to do, now if you add Kodai Senga to this, Wardy's going to be sitting here every time we record, and he's just going to be smiling. Because he's going to say, I feel good about this Mets pitching staff right now because Kodai Senga is showing up. And we didn't even mention Sean Manaea, who also could probably be put in this category. But I think Kodai Senga, because of his talent and what we've seen of him from his rookie year till now, when he's on the mound and when he's healthy, we know what this man could do. It's just about him being there. So if he's there and those other 2 players you mentioned in the pitching rotation do what they are supposed to do, I'm telling you, Wardy's smirking already. He's going to be smiling from ear to ear if that happens. So that's why, for me, Kodai Senga is number 1. So I think you'll see from my list a lot of variance, a lot of unpredictability, what I need, and a lot of questions about availability. But if these things hit, I think the Mets can have a successful season. Your list, I think, had a lot of, I know these things to be certain, but if these guys hit the marks that I think they can, it also gets the Mets to where they do. Both things are true, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And, especially the emphasis, again, with mine is if you don't have these guys performing to the caliber that you're anticipating, what breaks loose. It's not going to be good, unfortunately, just because then you have major holes that you need to fill. And Kodai Senga is not a player at all I think Mets fans can bank on at all as a certainty heading into the season. That's what's failed us the past couple of years, right? Unfortunately. Again, it's tough because of how great that 2023 campaign was, where he was a Cy Young and rookie their finalist. Now, as we fast forward 3 years later, entering 2026, the velo looks great so far this spring, as you mentioned, Dexter. But this is a player where if you get Kodai Senga looking more like 2023 or a bit of the first half from 2025, but better, pair that with McLean and Peralta doing their thing, I promise you, every single time that I'm coming to the studio here in Manhattan for our segments, I'm going to be strutting just like Peter Parker when he has the Venom suit on under, and he just does not have a care in the world, okay? That's exactly how I'm going to feel, Dex. So that's what I was thinking right away when you said I'd be happy. And every Mets fan would be happy. It would be electric. But here's the thing with Kodai Senga. The ceiling is as good as anyone in the rotation, and the floor is someone who's still in AAA Syracuse. So that gap is significant. And the way that there's a gap for Luis Robert in floor versus ceiling, that's what Kodai Senga is for this Mets rotation. So which side are we going to get this year? We're just going to have to wait and see.
Damn, that ceiling and floor gap in the comparison to Luis Robert, kind of like that. It's funny. I had them 1 and 5. I like that because the gap for them is so huge. But if they're hitting, and look, here's the other thing we know. We've been watching sports for a long time.
Right.
All this stuff that we're talking, everybody's not going to hit. So and nobody's going to hit at what their numbers are. We hope so. Somebody's going to have a down year. Let's just hope it's somebody we don't expect or somebody that's not on either of these lists. Right. That's what we
Someone that isn't as relevant.
That isn't relevant,
no
yes.
offense to any of the other New York Mets. I love them all. But, you know who you are.
You know who you are. So we'll see. I like your list. Your list was solid.
No, your list was good too, and I like the fact that we were able to play off of each other's having different types of lists, no overlap or anything like that. So that was good. But I definitely want to hear from the Mets fans. That's the most important thing. How do they feel about who are the players that are really going to make or break this Mets 2026 roster?
That's what we want to hear. So as we wrap here, what we want to hear from you is we want to hear in the comments. Let us know who you think. Do you agree with my list? Do you agree with Wardy's list? What's your own list? Put your top 5 in the comments. Let us know what you think about this? Is there a player that we left off? Is there somebody that we didn't mention that we would be thinking about? That's it. We'll have more fun. We'll do more stuff like this throughout the season as we look at players who need to do things. People like fives. People like top fives.
Oh, yeah.
Lists. People love lists. Do you love lists?
Oh, yeah. They're a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah,
and they're simple and they're great for debate. That's the main thing.
There we go.
Yeah.
And see, Wardy and I, we had a little, questions. We had some pushback. We challenged each other's thinking. That's what's good. It's good discussion from the fans. That's what we want to do. All right. That is my guy, Tyler Wardy. He has his list. I had my list. I'm Dexter Henry. We are going to get out of here. We'll catch you next time on another edition of Straight Outta Flushing.
Peace out, everybody.